This is a cash grab. When I first heard there was going to be a Suicide Squad isekai, I raised an eyebrow. But then, when I learned the title of the show is Suicide Squad Isekai, I gained the impression that this was going to be an irredeemable, shameless money laundering scheme in classic DC fashion. But does it all result in something that's actually good? Well, I found the answer to be pretty shocking. Seeing the parasitic popularity of isekai and also the tremendous success of anime as a whole, DC just decided to inject their disappointments into the medium. Was my initial thought, but deep down there was a slight hope that this could be good. This concept is so damn goofy and ridiculous it might just work. This had a non-zero possibility of surprising me. Just to let you know, I'm not really what you'd call a DC fan, if those even exist anymore. The Suicide Squad franchise is genuinely the definition of hit or miss. I surprisingly enjoyed the second movie, and this is footage of me watching the first iteration. So therefore, this too must also be hit or miss. I shouldn't get my hopes up too high. Was the thought circling around my brain until I realized the absolute lineup for this show. Tappei is said to have a large part in the writing of this show, which if you didn't know, because God knows I didn't know, I thought Tappei was a fucking Pokemon. If you didn't know, he's the creator of fucking ReZero, which is at least in the running for the most successful isekai of all time, and a hood classic. And we know that this dude at least had something to do with the project. And it is produced by Wit Studio, you know, the one studio behind this, and you know, this too, but you know, that's kind of underground. So with this knowledge, expectations soared from the trenches to the moon, as I waited. Then eventually that tender 3-pack of episodes dropped and I watched it. And it's pretty good. There's a lot of folks who are majorly disappointed by everything they saw. And to all of you guys, I understand. Maybe the perspective might change when you switch up how much knowledge you have about the show beforehand, because I know a ton of people had huge expectations similar to me just from seeing the lineup, but I think the type of expectations these guys had are very different to mine. Look, I can understand being disappointed if you come into a show with expectations that you're going to experience a similar story to previous works of that author, but you have to understand that the previous work of that author is ReZero. That ReZero, the incredibly tightly written, sober narrative that takes itself seriously. I mean, mostly seriously. But regardless, do you see any similarities between these two franchises? Maybe I'm missing something, but you can't just expect Tappei to write the same type of subversive, bleak genre deconstruction with a cast of characters whose IQs cap at room temperature. I think a lot of people saw Tappei's name and just automatically assumed we were getting some experimental shit on par with, like, JoJo Siwa Dancing. Although whoever thinks like this is really just not thinking realistically. Because the fact of the matter is that Warner Bros. Or DC probably gave Tappei some regulations or strict guidelines, or just specifically told him to play it safe. And yes, I do agree that the show is safe, but I don't agree with this. This is not true. I know it's not true, you know it's not true, because most media is safe. And can you really say that most media is bad? Okay, maybe. But the point is, people are probably not inclined to give all of the bread and butter superhero movies a bad score just because they're not like Invincible. I think Tappei did a great job in handling the characters and premise he was given. Like, sure, the high fantasy setting is a little generic and the plot so far is a little bit predictable, but I'm gonna be honest with all of you. This is the best completely new isekai, excluding season 2s, I've seen in a while. And believe me, I would know how this compares to the other recent amalgamations in the same genre. I condemned myself to watching every single isekai from the past couple seasons to research for this video, which you should totally watch. I put a lot of effort into it. And this isekai for me is honestly a breath of fresh air. It feels like the writing of this show, even if the premise isn't too out of the box, is so detached from the isekai hive mind. Like, something that I eventually stopped questioning after consuming ungodly amounts of this shit is the fact that the people in these fantasy worlds always coincidentally happen to just speak the same language as a protagonist. Like, the devs added the Japanese plugin to the world as the main character spawned in. But in Suicide Squad Isekai, the language barrier is actually an area of conflict for our main characters, because this time they're American. A ton of tropes and guardrails that this genre takes for granted are challenged here, like the fantasy land being in the midst of peacetime, or humanity's in endless war with the faceless demon lord, or like the round walled off medieval city land that I dub as the isekai preset, or the main character having to die and reincarnate into a new world. The Suicide Squad isekai subverts these entirely, as the portal to another world was opened manually for specific reasons, and the fantasy world is in a state of war against those pig guys from Zelda. The fantasy land actually looks different, mystical. There's like this cotton candy magic floating around the islands. I don't know, it just has a very cool vibe. I fuck with it. You know what else I fuck with? The characters. From the continuation of the MJ cinematic universe to Harley Mid.
I would run through a field of cayenne pepper, razor blades, and lemon to sniff her socks. Dude, that is the hottest version of Harley we've ever been given.
The Shark Dude's better, in my humble opinion. Is that a hot take? Then we go to the first black character to come from Japan that doesn't look like some Jim Crow era Big Lip Monkey cartoon. And finally we have the GOAT, who got absolutely tarnished by a voice actor that isn't John Cena.
If we can trust everything that Amanda told us to be true,
and his name is not John Cena!
Who has a dynamic that can only be described as some chaotic evil D&D party. They're funny, proactive, and move the plot along just by being themselves. Easily the best part of the show and a huge reason I had so much fun with it. Like the scene after the prison break where they're confronted with Magic Knights and Agent John Smith here, or whatever his name is, tries to exchange some diplomatic words he learned spending years in jail with orcs.
Mami Ryu Inate, Roha Rea Tokutono Inate, not to Kise, not to Rio, Roho Reto Ikero, Sufgaya, Tachirise?
You can't get this type of gold from just adhering to standard isekai tropes. There's also the scene where all the important people were sitting in a circle probably discussing the practical effects that joking has on size. And then the hyped up hero Magic Knight guy pulls up to the function.
Are you not the hero who once saved the kingdom?
Hero?
The mighty knight who was blessed with the sacred armor by the princess
Hero with receding
herself.
hairlines, I guess. Middle-aged hero.
Shall arrive.
Sure, this anime is a little bit predictable right now. At this time where 3 episodes are out, like I genuinely put money on the inevitability that the Joker is going to be part of the previous Suicide Squad and is going to be like an op to our main crew in some shape. But again, predictability does not equal bad. It's not about what happens, it's about how it gets there. Is this anime a cash grab? Absolutely. Does it play it safe? Of course, but it's a safe cash grab that produced the funnest time I've had with any isekai since like Eminence in Shadow. There is one criticism I'd give it that I also heard other people talking about, which is how some, not all, fight scenes look like they've been intentionally slowed down. I'll actually show you in my playback that the fight actually just looks objectively better put at 1.5 times speed. I don't know if this was decided by Wit Studio to do this, but it's just weird. Although it doesn't ruin the show or anything. So that's my take on the show. Would recommend it. So now's that part of the time in the video where I pop this statistic in your face and beg for subs. But really, I just want to wish you a good day. Thanks for watching till the end.